Hi, this is Lauren from LSP Actions and welcome to the video tutorial for the LSP Little Chick overlays. These overlays are PNG transparent background files, the real yellow chicks, and they are ideal for adding to your spring and Easter images this year. In this tutorial video, I'm going to show you how to download the chicks, how to get into them, and how to add them to your images in Photoshop. I'm going to show you how to use the complementary actions that I've included, and also how to do this manually by hand. I'm using Photoshop CC on Windows, but you can apply these steps in Photoshop Elements and older versions on Photoshop on Mac and on PC. It helps if you're familiar with the software, but you know, I'm going to kind of go through this with you just to show you some best practices when adding transparent PNG images to your photos and how to get them blended in and looking realistic. So let's get started. After downloading from the LSP Actions website, you'll notice that this is a zipped file. It may look different if you're on Mac or if you're on a different version of Windows. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. Oh look, the little chickie sticking out there. Okay, so if you're on Mac, you can unzip by double clicking or using the archive utility. It's really important that you actually unzip and extract these. So in Windows, I'm going to right click and choose extract all. It's really important that you extract the folder because otherwise Photoshop is not going to be able to use these if they're zipped. Even though the folder might look the same, it's really important that you extract. And you'll notice inside what you have is, oh, I'll correct that spelling mistake. I am terrible when I'm typing. So you'll notice inside you have chicks for the light to white backgrounds and you have chicks for mid to dark backgrounds. You also have the bonus chick applicator Photoshop actions that you can use. You can of course apply these by hand and I'll show you how, but using the actions can really help make this quicker, and it gives you some layer options for editing and blending the chick with your image a bit better, like shadows, some contrast, some lighting, some dark, and you know, different color options and things like that. So once you've opened this and the files are extracted, again a very important step, extract these files. You can go ahead and double click on chicks for light to white or chicks for mid to dark to see what's inside. So here we can see you have the 10 chicks, chick images. Some of them are doubled up. You have 2 on here, so there's more than 10, but you have these images here for the light to white. And let's go back here. And inside this folder you have the chicks for dark. So you see these are darker around the edges. These were shot on a darker background and the lights to white were shot on a white. These chicks, I've made sure that they're very kind of, the lighting is quite flat on them and they're quite evenly toned. So this means you can add and take away when you're editing. So they're not over edited, they're coming in quite simple. So it allows you to add and take away more depending on your image. You'll also notice inside the zip file that you have the chip applicator bonus actions. So let's apply these first and get the actions into Photoshop. So with Photoshop open, let me just hide these chicks here. With Photoshop open, you want to make sure you can see your layers panel. This is quite important. If you can't see your layers panel, come up here to window and hit layers. You're also going to want to see your actions panel. So come up to window and hit actions. If your actions appear at the top here, what I like to do is grab them and make them free floating. Or you can grab and join in there, but just make them free floating. If you're on Elements, you may not have this choice, or an older version of Photoshop, but if you're on Creative Cloud, you can do this. And as you can see, my action panel, I've got a lot of actions in here, as I'm sure you can imagine. So let me just close those down. Your action panel hopefully won't look quite as chaotic as mine. So to load actions, you can either double click the chick bonus applicator actions here, and what they'll do, they will load into Photoshop right at the bottom of your actions panel. If this isn't working for you, you can come up here, the little burger menu, choose load actions, and make sure you can go and locate the chick applicator action in your downloads folder, the unzipped, unextracted version, and that will get your actions in. I like to work in button mode, so if you click, again, this is not available in Elements, only full versions of Photoshop. Click the burger menu and choose button mode and you'll see your actions are all coloured. If they look like this, it's a little bit hectic. So grab the side of your action panel and pull it in until it snaps into a nice neat column. Your actions will load right at the bottom, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make this panel a little bit smaller so we can only get the chick applicator actions up. Inside you have the LSP chick. This is just the title here. At the bottom you have the end. You don't need to worry about either of these. It's just so I do this for organisational purposes, so you know when actions start and finish, if like me you've got a lot of actions in there. And then you'll see here the first action you have, I like to put this little play icon next to the actual actions, just so it helps you to see where the actions are. You have add chick plus layer setup, and what this one will do, it will add all of these different layers for you. You had add chick only. This literally will help you add and place the chick image in, but it won't give you any layering options. So what you can do, you can add your own editing there. And you have a couple of extras. You can flip the chick. Now the chicks here, they're all lit from camera left. So if your image is lit from camera right, you can use this to flip the chick to match the lighting, but use your eye when you're adding these, and all the way use your eye when you need to know the colour, whether the chick needs to be blurry or not, whether the lighting is coming from a different direction. So a good eye will really help to make a realistic image. Practice makes perfect. You also have the flatten the chick only, so you can select the group and flatten, but don't worry about that now. I'll show you how to do that. So let's get started. I'm going to just get rid of these. And what I'm going to choose, add chick and layer setup. So I'm going to show you how to do this by using the actions. If you want to know how to do this completely manually by hand, not using the actions, just skip the video one a bit and you'll find it. So first of all, I'm going to click here, add chick plus layer setup. And what this is going to do is open the folders on your computer, and then you're going to need to locate the unzipped version of those chick images that you've downloaded. So let me just make these a little bit larger. So you see you have the zip file here and the unzipped file here. So I'm going to go ahead and open the unzip, and I'm going to open up the light to white backgrounds, because this is obviously a very, very white image here. So we want these nice light bright chicks. And let's decide which little chick to place first. How about this guy here? So I'm just going to double click, and what that's going to do is bring the chick into your image. It might be big, it might be small, and you're going to want to resize this in to a suitable size for your image and decide where to place the chick. Let's put this little one here. You can hit enter, double click, or the little checkbox at the top. And what's going to happen now, the actions are running, they're setting up all these layers. Can you see there? Over here in the layers panel, they set up all these layers for you. So let's take a closer look at what you've got here. First of all, you have the chick, and that's the layer that's selected here in orange. I've added a layer mask on in case you need to take any of the chick away. So for example, if the chick was, behind your subject here, you can select a brush on black. I like the brush settings to be 100% opacity and 25% flow, as with everything at LSP. Brush mode needs to be normal. Just going to make that brush a little harder. So if your chick was, slightly behind your subject, you can use this brush on the layer mask to paint away a little bit of your subject there. A little bit of the chick, sorry. Just so we get that, that depth there. The reason I like to use a layer mask instead of erasing is it means that you can go back and forth and decide, what you're doing. So a black brush means hide and a white brush means show, and you can paint back and forth, black and white, until you're happy. Underneath the chick, you have this smart filters layer here, which is a Gaussian blur, and as you see, the layer mask is black, so this means it's hidden. So you need to use a white brush to paint this on. So I'm going to switch the brush to white, and let's zoom in on this chick here. I'm going to make that nice soft brush. I'm on this smart filter here. You don't have to do this, only if you want to add some blur. I've left the chicks really quite nice and sharp for you, so if you want to add that blur to soften them up, you can. So I'm just painting on a little blur around the edge. Can you see it there? So let's go before and after there, adding a little bit of blur in. And if you click on where it says Gaussian blur here, you can double click that and you can increase the blur if you want to. So this can help you match your depth of field of your image. Above the chick, you have a darken layer, then you have gentle brighten, harsh brighten, so that's if you've got really some bright kind of blown out whites you'd like to add in. You can add contrast, add matte, bold colour, desaturate, warm the chick up, cool the chick down. So let's start at the bottom. Make sure your brush is on black, nice and soft, 100% opacity, 25% flow. So I'm just going to add a little bit of darken around this bottom edge of the chick there. A gentle brighten, I'm also going to add some of that around this side. You can see this is there are some harsh shot highlights in this image, so I'm just going to add that there, and perhaps even a little bit of harsh brighten there. Just brighten this little chick up. A touch of contrast, perhaps even a little bit of bold colour here. At this point you can kind of look at your image and think, is the chick matching? And if they're not, you can go ahead and keep blending them until they do. I'm also going to add, perhaps for this image, a little bit of warmth. Warm this chick up a little bit more. Underneath all of these layers here, you have shadows paint, and you can paint this under the chick. So the chicks come with little shadows, but you can paint a little bit more. Perhaps if this chick, let me just move him over here, was near your subject, let's say there, you may want to add some of these shadows to your subject just to add some realistic shading in. You can just dab that there and it just adds some shadowing to your subject or to the floor or to the chick. So I'm just going to add a little bit there too. If you click on the group here at the top, right up here where it says LSP chick group, you can use the move tool like I've been doing, and you can drag this chick around again even after you've edited it in, just to get it in the right place for you. I'm just going to use a black brush now quickly to remove these shadows. We don't need them here anymore. So that's how you can add a chick using the actions, and I'm going to show you this on a darker image as well and an outdoor image. Where's the outdoor? Like this. I'm just going to go ahead and close that group. You can close and open the group here if you want to. And if you don't like working with so many layers, because obviously the more layers you've got, the bigger the image, and it might say, you know, your image is really big. So once you've got the chick and you're really happy, you can click on the group, make sure it's the group and not just the layer, make sure it's this folder here, and you can use the flatten chick only option, and what that will do, it will turn this into an individual layer for you. So let's go ahead and add another chick. I'm going to go a little bit quicker this time. Add the chick with the layer set up. How about this guy here? And I'm just going to put this little chickie, where should we put this one? It's slightly in the background here because I'm going to blur this chick a little bit, I think, to show you how that works. So, as before, all the layers are being set up. This is a completely new chick group here. So you still have the old one here that we can turn on or off, but now we have a new group. So again, white brush, normal, 100% opacity, 29% flow. I'm just going to add some of this harsh brighten around the edge here because this little chick is right in the kind of firing line for the light. A little bit of colour, perhaps a little warm up. And I'm going to blur this chick because with the depth of field, this little guy, in fact, let's move him back even more. Let's pop him over here. So I'm adding that on the Smart Filter Blur, and I'm going to double click Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to add a little bit more to this chick. Just a little bit more blur. And I think with the chick being there, this light would probably be wrapping around a little bit more. So let's just move this chick. Perhaps there. I may also add a little bit of matte to these chicks just to match the slightly washed out feeling of this image. Oh, let me show you how to flip the chick as well. So you can click on the chick image here. If the light is coming from a different direction, you can click on, make sure you click on the chick, not on any of these other layers, and flip. And you'll see it'll turn him around. And you can flip again, you know, just flip, flip, flip. Dancing chick, flip, flip, flip until until you know it matches your lighting. And at any point you can turn these on or off just by clicking in the little eye icon here. You can open and close the group with all the layers in. Everything is very, very adaptable, and it's quite handy to know how to use Photoshop actions when you're editing, and Photoshop layers and everything like that. And we can still move these chicks if we want to. Nothing is permanent. So let me show you how to add the chick manually. First I'll show you how to add chick only. So here we have add chick only, and I'll show you how you can add your own editing layers. So I've clicked on add chick only, and it's done the same thing. It's opened up the chick images here. Let's make them a little bit smaller. Just shrink them down here. So we have these two little chicks. I'm so sorry if you can hear my children in the background going shh. They know I'm in here recording a video. Okay, so let's pop these two here. Now what's happened is we've gone on add chick only, so it hasn't set up any layers. It's literally just added the chick in here with a layer mask. So if you've added them manually, you may wish to add your own layers. First of all, I'm just going to use a black brush just to calm some of this shading down. Just a little bit on there, so we can just use a black brush to paint away any of these shadows, anything you don't want on these images. You can just click on the layer mask at any time by just calming those shadows down just a touch. So once you've added your chicks in, you're kind of happy with the size. The next step will be, if you want to, of course, to add some blurring and depth of field. You simply come up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you can add your own blur layer there. And that will come up underneath as a smart filter with a white box, which means it completely shows. To hide this, you can Control or Command and hit I, and that will invert the layer to black. So you can grab a white brush and just paint that blur around the edges or anywhere else you need to replicate the depth of field. Zoom in on these chickies a little bit, shall we? Next up, you're going to want to add some editing layers to make sure they match with your image. So what I like to do is come down here to your adjustment menu, and that is a little half and half circle, and this will come up with lots of options. You could use levels, you could use curves, hue, saturation. So I'm going to make a new levels layer. Now if I change this, it's going to affect the whole image, which we don't want it to do. So you want to right click on this layer and choose Create Clipping Mask, and what that will do is going to clip it with this little arrow just to the chicks. And that means any adjustments you do now will only affect these chicks and not the rest of your image. So what I'm going to do is just going to grab the middle slider up to the left and perhaps this harsh slider here for the whites, and just bring up those brights. Control or Command I to invert the layer, grab your brush, set to white, and you can just paint these highlights on. You can add any adjustment layers to your chicks using this method, the clipping mask method there. So you can literally add anything you want to. I think what I'm going to do is slightly mattify these chicks a little bit as well. So I'm going to have another levels layer, right click, create a clipping mask. And you see the sliders right here at the bottom. I'm just going to bring them in a bit, and that's just going to add some matte to those chicks just to match the airy feel of this image. But you can add your own editing layers in any way that you want to. You can turn them on or off by clicking the little eye icons. But I do prefer using the Add Chick and Layer Setup option because it just gives you so many more layers to play with, and you can add your own in there too. So once you've added using the Layers option and you get all these, you can click anywhere if you want to. Add an adjustment layer, it will automatically clip in. See, look, I've just added hue and saturation, and we're changing the colour of this chick, which we don't really want to do, but I mean, you could have pink chicks, it would be quite fun. So there's so many ways you can get these chicks into Photoshop, so many ways you can use them. You can use the actions, or you can go manually. To go completely manually with no actions, you're going to want to come to File, Place Embedded, and you can choose your chick that way. And that will just literally add the chick in completely with no layers or anything. It's here. So you're going to want to click on the little box down here, the little rectangle with a circle in, to add your layer mask, and go from there. I'm going to get these actions back up again. So how about we do a dark edit? Let me just get rid of these chicks here so you can see these little chickies. I was popping them about while I was playing. Let's get rid of those and add some chicks manually using the actions. With this one I'll show you some more masking options so you can add the chicks into the box here. So I'm going to choose add chick with layer setup, and I'm going to go on the chicks for mid to dark background images here. Let's just make these a little larger. Okay, and let's decide which little chicks we want to have in the top crate. How about these two? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to resize them to about the right size. And let's pop them in here. The layers are playing out because I've chosen add chick plus layer setup, so I'm going to get all these layers to play with. It's selected the chick layer mask for me, so I'm going to go over to a black brush. And I'm going to zoom in here, black brush hard, and I'm actually going to pop the flow up a little bit because I really want to erase the chicks coming along here. See, like that? Now they look like they're floating a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to switch to a white brush and just start building them back in now, following the kind of the line of this crate. Make this brush a bit smaller. Kind of delicate business, but you know, you can, once you've got an eye for it, you can kind of see what you're doing. And because you're using a layer mask, if at any point you accidentally go over, you can just switch to black, come to paint away, and white to show. You can also use X on your keyboard to switch between black and white like this. You see it's switching without constantly having to click in there, and that makes editing even easier. On the LSP Actions website I have a free printable about keyboard shortcuts, using your keyboard shortcuts to edit, which just makes life quicker and easier when you're editing. One hand on the keyboard, the other hand on your mouse or your tablet. So I'm just coming around these fingers here. A little bit fiddly, but we'll get there. You can make the brush bigger or smaller by either by right clicking and changing the size, or by using the square bracket keys on your keyboard. So that looks about right, although have I missed that? Yes I have. Okay, so that looks about right. So I'm going to take the brush back down to soft and change the flow back to 25 so we can carry on editing. First of all, I'm going to go on darken. This will darken these chicks, so I'm just going to add that darkness in there along the bottom, adding some shadows. I'm also going to unclip this layer mask here, hit move or V tool, and I'm just going to bring them into the crate a little bit now. Just a little bit more. Let's have them there. Looks like they're resting on something. If you're unsure about any of the things I'm doing, there's so many workshops on how to use Photoshop, and it is really very much worth learning all these little tricks. Just back on this mask because I'm rushing a little bit and I haven't quite got this properly done. Okay, so I'm using darken here. You can see that it has darkened the chicks up. If it's not intense enough, you can come up here to the opacity of that layer and you can just bring it up a little bit. So I've just really darkened them, and again you can add your own layers at any point. So I could add the levels layer. Oh, I've added curves, but that's okay. If you're on elements you won't have the option of curves, I'm afraid. And I can just bring the darkness down. You can also play on your blend mode. You can do whatever you like. This is all manual, but you know, it's definitely worth playing with these things because I don't know about you, but I learn by doing. I'm going to just pop a little bit of brightness on the face there. I'm going to come down here to the bottom, the shadows paint, to add some shadows behind the chicks in this crate, where you get some natural kind of shadows coming in. Let's just paint a little bit along there too. So we've added these chicks into the crate. I might use a little desaturate pop there just because those oranges are looking quite dark on this particular image. So let's go ahead, close that group and turn them on or off. And there they are. We've added them into the crate. Super cute. So I'm going to go ahead and add another little chick. Let's add this guy here, he's really cute, and I'm going to put him about here. Let's have him standing on the box. Let's balance him on there, get him in the right place, make sure he's the right size. So about there, the layers are playing out. It's really fun to play with. The main thing is just knowing what you want to achieve and how you want your image to look. The final image, what, you know, how does the light need to match your image, how do the colours need to match. Just adding a little bit of shadow there, a bit of shadow behind. Obviously the light in this image is coming from the right here, and this little chick, the light here is coming slightly from the left. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on the chick and choose flip the chick, and there we go. Or you can flip the image if it's easier, so do pay attention to the angle that your light is coming from. Just adding some shadow in there. And I'm going to use a little bit of the blur filter too, just to soften around the edges of this chick, soften up those little spiky feathers. Perhaps some shadow under here too, so just shading him in. Remember, shadows are often quite close to the subject. The closer that your subject is, and you know, you're going to get some fall off too, so playing with shadows is quite fun in Photoshop. Just make sure they look realistic and it's not just a black fluffy outline around your subject. So let's see there before and after, adding those little chicks in. Let's do one more. Let's go for who should we add? How about this little one? I'm going to flip him horizontal at this point. Of course you can use the flatten, the flip chick as well. Let's pop him down here. Layers are being set up again for this chick in particular, so every time the layers are set up, they're for the individual chick that you've added. So you can always go back. I like to leave my layers right up until the last moment anyway. When playing with layers, right up until the last save, just to make sure you're happy. And I'm just going through, just adding a little bit of darkness to this chick here, because he has come off into the background. And again, at any point you can add your own adjustment layer, and you can play with these yourself by adding your layers in. The layers in the actions are just a guide, they're just to play with. To start you off with, but at any point adding your own layers is a really great thing to do, because it allows you that creativity and that freedom when you're editing. Let's just pop this little one here. So that's adding the chicks on a darker background. We can see here before and after, and here's the one I did earlier, adding these guys in here. And just make sure your light is coming from the right direction. So for example, any point you realise, oh, I need to flip them, just click on the layer. I'm just going to unlink that because I've already masked it, and choose flip chick, and it will just turn them round for you. And there we go. And I'm going to just move that over there just a little bit. You can drag any of the layers around, even your adjustments. Really, really flexible, really, really fun. So let's go with adding a chick to an outdoor image. So here's one I did earlier. Added this little chickie in, and you can see we really had to bring the contrast up on this one. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add the chick with the layer setup. And for this one, for outdoor, it's hard because you've got the mid-tones, but where there's so kind of harsh sunshine in this one, I went for the chicks for white to light for this image. But use your own judgment. Now I'm just going to shrink this little chickie down. I'm going to pop them in the basket here. Standing on that egg, so have a chickie about there. Layers are playing out, and the first thing I need to do is mask this foot, because it would actually be hidden behind that egg. So I'm going to grab the brush, set to hard black, and just turn it up. But again, you know, it really does depend on your image as to how you do this and what you do. So I'm just masking that egg shape there. Slightly harder, but obviously this is a slightly blur. There is depth of field going on here, so we do want it slightly blurred. And reset my brush back down for editing. Once you get used to doing this, you can do it really, really quickly. I'm just clicked on the Gaussian blur and I'm just blurring this chick a bit because this image at this point in the basket, the focus has fallen a little bit. So I'm just adding that blur in to make it even more realistic. Add the darkness to the chick here, a little bit of shadow coming in underneath. And you'll notice here this image, the highlights are very, very, very bright, almost to the point of being blown. So I'm going to click on the harsh brighten here, grab the brush and just really kind of blow out around the edges here where that sunlight would be coming in. With a little bit darken underneath. I'm going to add contrast to this chick, so I've just clicked on the add contrast layer. I'm going to turn that up a little bit. Bold colour. I'm going to add the bold colour to this chick again because this image is very, very vibrant. And I'm going to turn that up. And probably the warm up pinky as well. Add a little warmth because this is a very warm image. What I'm also going to do is add a manual layer in, because at this point, once you've gone through the layers that you need, you might think, it needs a little more. I can't provide a layer for every single image because you would have far too many layers. So what you can do is come down to the adjustments and add your own. For this one, I'm going to add hue and saturation, and I'm just going to play with the hue here just to kind of get this chick blended in a little more with the colours in the image. I'd say probably about there. And you can always use a black or a white brush to paint this on or off, so I'm just going to paint a little off from underneath, see, because you'd be getting that natural colour cast off some of the grass. And then I'm going to go on the shadows and just add a little bit of shading underneath to these eggs and to her hand. And a little bit to our chickie too. And because these are all layers, you can come back to them at any point and you can change how they look. You can change the opacity, you can paint on or off, you can do all of these things. But if at any point you're unsure of anything that I'm saying, do look into Photoshop and you know how you do these things, because it is really, really great to learn. Just add a tiny dot more contrast using pulling the ends of the levels in a little bit more there. And there we go, little chick added to the Easter basket. So her hand was obviously poised to grab an egg, and instead she's being gentle and looking at her little chick. Very, very cute. And of course, no animals were harmed in the process. So I hope you love using these chicks. Here's one I did earlier on a cake smash, so we can see there before and after. And I went in and added a little bit of cake to this chick too. Just by cloning a layer here, buying a new clone layer, adding a little bit of shadow there and matching the depth of field. These chicks here, we added them to this image. They're standing between this cute shot of this mum and her little girl, and I flipped the chick over as well to add a little bit of reflection underneath the foot, just by duplicating the chick image, flipping it upside down, making it transparent there. Just adds that reflection in. So it's quite important when you're doing this to pay attention to your image and, you know, really think, how can I blend the chick with my image? How can we blend them in? What do they need? Do they need to be more vibrant? Do they need to be brighter? Do we need more contrast? Do we need less contrast? How are we going to match the chicks to the image? And I really, really hope you enjoyed playing with these. It's been rather a long tutorial video, but we had quite a lot to cover, 3 completely different editing scenarios, using actions and adding manually. So, if you made it to the end, congratulations, it was a long one. And please, I really hope you enjoy using these. And please, if you're not already a member, do come and join the LSP Actions editing group on Facebook, or you can find the link on the website at lsp-actions.com. I'm Lauren, thanks for watching.